Well, it's the holiday season 2020. Got a little more time to make videos this week. Cold and gray in December some years. And good hiking weather if you don't want to overheat. We've got a cool gray day here in the 20s. And we're down along the banks of the Muscatatuck River in Jennings County, Indiana. And I visited this area last year at this time at a park called the Cali Nature Preserve. And that is on this channel with Anderson Falls. A couple miles downstream from here, and the river here has cut into this limestone bedrock and made some what's called entrenched meanders. I'll get out the map in a few minutes here, and we'll look at that on the topographic map. But some ingenious people in the early 1800s harnessed the flowing water of this river at a place called Tunnel Mill. It's not that much of a hike. It's a short walk from the parking area, but we're going to look around and see what's back here. And nearby, there's some other parks with more hiking trails that I might stitch onto this set of videos if time allows. But I'm hoping to do some more hikes in this area tomorrow and look at some limestone caves and sinkholes. This is a real interesting part of the world if you're into rocks and natural history. So let's continue on in just a few minutes. And let's get down at the river level and start looking for this tunnel mill. It is able to be found. From what I have read, it's not hard to find. And this is public land here as far as I can tell. No signs indicating otherwise. The bridge you're seeing here is South County Road 25W here in Jennings County, Indiana. And I shot a video off the bridge just north of here that crossed this same river a few minutes ago. So what the river does here, the Muscatatuck River, is it makes a huge meander. The meander is about 4 miles long, and where you see the T on the map, an ingenious person decided to tunnel through the dolomite and limestone here and direct the water through a grist mill. This stream, as you can see, has riffles and is probably dropping 5 or 10 feet per mile. So by the time you get around this big old bend here in Vernon, Indiana, you can see we're right near downtown Vernon, Indiana, you've lost 30 or 40 feet in elevation. So that falling water can be directed through the tunnel and put to work in pre-industrial days to do the work that modern machinery would do. Saw lumber, grind grain, crush rocks, whatever the work needed to be done. That's what they would use in the early 1800s when much of this land was still being settled by Europeans. So this is the Muscatatuck River here, and again, there's a parking lot right off of South CR 25W. That stands for County Road 25W. Just outside of downtown Vernon, Indiana. As you come across, you'll cross the river once. And just before you cross it a second time, at the end of this oxbow, you will see a small parking lot, room for about 10 cars. There appears to be a trail heading towards where the tunnel is. Let's follow it. And if that doesn't play out, these are open woods through here, folks. And bushwhacking would not be difficult in the cooler months when the stinging nettles are gone. And let's continue our hike back to the tunnel mill here in Jennings County, Indiana. Well, the parking lot that I used is for the wildlife area here. I just saw some signage. The state does own this land in most of this gooseneck area where the P is. There is one house here that would have made it impossible for me to follow the stream to the tunnel mill. It was private property. So what I've done is I've come back up from the parking area. And this dark line that I've drawn in there is actually a road that goes to what's called Baldwin Cemetery. And if you come down South County Road 25W from Vernon, Indiana, you will see a fork in the road and a sign indicating that the left fork, as you're coming south, leads to Baldwin Cemetery and then to the tunnel mill, we hope. So let's keep looking, but I'm finding things along the way. The road is just up the hill here, but I'm down in the woods looking around like I always do, and a beautiful view of this Muscatatuck River here. It's just a very peaceful day here. It's gray, but it's peaceful, and we don't have the shadow issues, so everything's real clear. And I'm doing a channel called Barking Up the Right Tree. B-A-R-K-I-N apostrophe up the right tree. And I've done a lot with oaks this year. And I just happened to find two similar oaks growing side by side. And boy, that sure makes it easy to learn them when they're right next to each other. On the left here, I've got a black oak with chunks in the bark going all the way up. And on the right, we have a red oak that has more furrows and valleys and like little, almost looks like ski trails at the bottom. But the leaves are very similar. They both have pointed tips. And what I have here are the acorns from the black oak on the left. And it looks like the shingles are coming loose. If you think of the acorn as the roof of the house, it looks like the shingles are coming loose and peeling loose. And on the acorn cap from the red oak, they are not. And they're more of a bowl shape. And the acorn cap on the left of the black oak is more shaped like a Hershey's Kiss. So we're coming down towards Baldwin Cemetery, looking at the river views along the way. It's a very peaceful walk along this road. There's no traffic back here. Let's continue on and keep looking for that tunnel mill. Well, I don't know if these waterfowls calling will come into the range of this camera, folks. I've got some waterfowl heading southwest, following the general course of the Muscatatuck River here. They don't sound like Canadian geese. They're making a different calling, and I don't know what they are. But just caught my attention as I got down this road to the Baldwin Cemetery. There appears to be some parking here. I don't know if it's encouraged or not, but where I parked was for the public hunting area, and be aware of your deer hunting season. But it is legal to park there. Parking right next to the cemetery, I'm not sure if that's encouraged for people visiting Tunnel Mill, but Tunnel Mill is open to the public. You can't drive past the gate here according to the signage. It's gated and they don't want you back there, but there is an obvious trail leading in the direction of the Tunnel Mill. So let's take a short, it's not a long hike. Even if you park where I parked, it's less than a mile one way. And I'm always looking for teachable moments. Here's a nice American elm tree with a kind of an even bark here. It's got some little chunks, some little flakes. I just did a new segment on my Barking Up the Tree channel, Barking Up the Right Tree channel on American and slippery elm. And one way we can tell American elm, we're fortunate enough to find a piece of bark that broke off this tree laying on the ground here. In the wintertime, the bark is the easy way to tell it apart from the other trees. It's got an Oreo cookie appearance, with that white filling and brown cookie on either side of it. The bark can get quite furrowed and irregular in places, so it's the cross section. If you break a little piece of bark off the tree carefully, you can see that it's an American elm by that look alone. Let's go down the trail here and get a better look at the Tunnel Mill. And just about a 5-minute walk from the entrance to the Tunnel Mill trail at the end of by the Baldwin Cemetery, we start finding the ruins of the facility that was here. There's some old stonework here. There's an old chimney here behind this tree here. We'll get a little closer to that in a few minutes, but let's get a better idea of what's here. We've got a small stream here that flows into the Muscatatuck River, and the Tunnel Mill itself was fed right through to the end of this stream. And here's the tunnel, and we're going to go right through it to the other side. You can see how narrow this neck of land is here. What's a 4-mile route around this hill here can be cut off in just a few hundred yards. So I'm right at the T there on this map. The cemetery is just to our west. And the Tunnel Mill was actually at the junction of the Muscatatuck River and this smaller stream that feeds in from the east. Some really interesting geology here. I did a hike about 20 miles north of here last December in 2019. Went to Anderson Falls, Indiana. That's still on this channel. It's about 4 or 5 clips on that area. And I explained that that bedrock there was very similar in age and structure to that of Niagara Falls, but it's a much smaller waterfall. In this case, the shale that's underneath this cap rock which is also the cap rock that forms Anderson Falls, created a very easy pathway for the people to dig this tunnel to create this mill. If this was all solid rock, at the time this mill was built, it may have been too much for them to do with hand tools. But this Elkhorn shale, I believe is the name of it, crumbles easily, provides a real easy structure to tunnel through. I'm not sure the exact date when this tunnel was built. I'll have to look that up again. I don't have it memorized. But this Elkhorn shale makes it real easy to create a waterfall where Mother Nature wanted one, and also to create a tunnel where the people wanted one. And this looks like a safe path to go through. And let's check it out and go out the other side. Yeah, and we've come through most of the tunnel here, folks. We're on the north side of the entrance to the tunnel. And you probably need to bring a flashlight, and you know, I had one in the truck and I didn't grab it because I didn't know you could go through this tunnel, folks, but it is possible to do it without a flashlight. There are a lot of rocks in here, but nothing that you can't get over. And obviously anything like this is prone to rockfall, so that's why the sign said it's a dangerous area. I think the bigger hazard here would be flash flooding, folks. There are trees that have washed right up to the entrance of this tunnel, and at high water, the Muscatatuck River would be cutting off this long entrenched meander and taking its water through this tunnel, and that would be something to see. I might even try to make a trip over here when the water is really high. But here we are at the north end of the tunnel. And we are at river level here, just 4 or 5 feet above river level, folks. So the ingenious people that built this facility knew that the river had lost quite a bit of elevation by the time it got around this big neck of land. And that change in elevation, if the water were diverted through this hill, could be used to their advantage to do the work that modern industrial machinery would do for us now. Got a few icicles forming on this cliff today. It's one of the colder days we've had this early winter. But again, this Elkhorn shale is the softer material. It provides the easy pathway for this tunnel. And we've got solid limestone and dolomite on the top and bottom to allow the tunnel to be dug easily. I don't see any signs of power tools in here as far as drill marks. Again, I'm going to try to add a little more to the end of this video set on the history of this because I don't have it memorized. But if a canoe trip were in order at lower water levels, you could easily stop here and look at this tunnel and keep paddling. This is mostly class 1 paddling, but very scenic through here. Don't be surprised if I add a canoe trip on the Muscatatuck River to this channel in the future. And while I've got the camera turned on, I've got one guest speaker here. We're not going to give his name, but he's going to say hello from Allentown, Pennsylvania. And those that know me will recognize his voice. Say hello, sir.
Hello.
Speak up.
How you doing?
And what town are we in, sir?
The state of Indiana.
And what's the town? Begins with a V, Vernon, Indiana, and we just found the AM radio station. He was able to get it in Allentown, Pennsylvania over the internet. WJCP. He plays country music. So we're going to go look at the other end of the tunnel again, folks. Maybe find some fossils and take a better look at those smokestacks. And we've turned around and we've come back south through this tunnel. And this thing is wide, folks. It's as wide as a tennis court. Probably at least 100 feet wide. So they obviously intended a lot of water to come through here to make such a wide tunnel to run the grist mill at the other end. And there's also a slot in the rock where they were maybe trying to focus the water at lower river levels. But I'm telling you, if you come here at high water, I think a lot of this river would be shortcutting this meander and coming right through here. So pretty interesting stuff. But here's what it looks like as you come out from the south. And just happened to notice this here. I don't know if that's a fossil or if that's from drilling that they may have done to build this. It could be a crinoid fossil, folks. I can't quite tell, but it's there. And let's just stop for a minute. We're going to look around the ruins of this mill. And after we come out of the south entrance of the tunnel, there is a small stream that joins the Muscatatuck River here right by the mill. And I'm just trying to, every day is different. Every hike is different. Let's just take a listen to what Mother Nature has to say today on this beautiful little stream. Water levels are fairly low for this time of year. We haven't had a lot of heavy rain in the last 4 months of 2020. Some heavy rain, but not a lot. So this is pretty much just spring water coming out of these hills. Makes it nice and clear, easy to see wildlife. We got common rocks around here are the dolomite that forms this cap rock, very similar to that of Niagara Falls. And some of the Lake Erie Islands in Ohio have this same dolomite. Put-in Bay has this same type of dolomite. Creates these neat little blocks that break off the cliffs and create their own little gardens. We got some hydrangea growing here, which would be real pretty in the summertime. And I'm sure this area with all this limestone and dolomite has spectacular wildflowers. The soil derived from those types of rock are often create very rich wildflower displays in April. Let's pause for a second and look at the ruins of this mill. And just a few feet down from that boulder, we've got some more of this limestone and dolomite here, just covered in moss. So, I have certain places in mind when I do these hikes, but often the neatest things are what you don't expect to find. And it's just beautiful the way this green shows up on a gray winter day. And the aquamarine color of this water here is from the calcium and magnesium that's found in the minerals around here. It creates that almost like a look of the Caribbean Sea. And you can see the very tall chimney from what used to be the mill here. And some stonework behind these trees that's a little harder to see. This is a fascinating place if you're interested in human history, natural history, and bedrock geology. This is the place to find it, folks. It's all right here, and it's all very close to the parking lot for the wildlife area and the cemetery. And we are currently about halfway through the meander that is shortcut by the tunnel mill. It's about 4 miles long. There are trails along this great bend in the Muscatatuck River. This is what's called the Muscatatuck County Park. It's run by Jennings County, Indiana. It's got a campground and probably about 10 or 12 miles of mountain bike and regular trails as well. Lots of interesting rock formations through here. Don't have much time to hike these trails today, but it says that you can reach the tunnel mill from this trail system if you have the whole day to do it. I parked closer so I could concentrate on the mill itself. While driving over here from that parking spot, I looked up some more information on when that mill was built. The Baldwin Cemetery that we passed on the way in there, that Baldwin family is the family that built the mill. I got my guest commentator right here from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Tell us, sir, what year was the tunnel mill built?
1824.
1824.
1824, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking here, sir. And when the water is low, as I mentioned in the earlier video set, so this is a great time if the water is low in these rivers around here to go fossil and mineral hunting. Indiana's full of all kinds of rocks in the southern part of the state. This is mostly brown chert here. The chert is so hard it just doesn't break away easily, and it stays in these riverbeds for many, many years. And it's not the best for making arrowheads, but it can be used for making arrowheads. So what you're seeing here is the brown chert, and there's also some fossils in the limestone and dolomite around here as well. And while eating my lunch, I looked up the geology of that shale that they tunneled through to make the tunnel mill. It is a shale. I misnamed it as the Elkhorn Shale, which I think is more common in Ohio. The name in Indiana is called the Waldron Shale, and that's also the shale that collapses underneath the thick layer at Anderson Falls to create that waterfall. So I made a mistake. I'll correct it right now. The mill was built in 1824, and continued in operation for many, many generations, mostly as a grist mill. So this is our exploration of the Tunnel Mill, Indiana. We're going to continue exploring this part of southern Indiana in the next few days.